The Blueprint 3 proved Jay-Z is still the biggest and baddest MC in the game. A few days before the album came out, he sat down with me to talk about Rihanna, President Obama, his hatred of YouTube beef, his love of Grizzly Bear, and of course, the death of auto-tune.
The day that Barack got elected, the gangster became less relevant. Hip-hop has done more for racial relations than any public speaker. This is so hard, it's crazy. This should be against everything.
Why is this Blueprint 3? Is there a sonic or thematic relationship between the three Blueprints versus your other albums?
Yeah, the first one was Return of the Soul samples of the things my moms and pops grew up. The second one was all over the place because it was my influences. It's almost like this one was the baby, this one was the teenager, and this one is the adult.
Ain't nobody fresher, I'm in Mason, Martin Martella on the table screaming, the other side they jealous. We got a banquet full of bras, they got a table full of fellas.
This one is more focused. I call it a new classic because it takes a bit of both of them. You know, it's the original approach to making music, you know, the instrumentations and these sounds that we grew up listening to.
I love the Blueprint 3 album cover, but I don't get it.
Right.
What does it mean? What are you saying?
The 3 came because it's the original 3. Like when they had it draw on the walls and the caves.
Right.
It just would draw 3, and of course they attached it later on as it evolved in its shape. So that was the original 3. So it was like going back to the original way of making music. The white instruments in the back are the instruments that all jumped in the corner now. No one's using because they're using the instrument for their voice. So now no one's paying attention to this type of music, and the white is the blandness of music in general. It's a little artsy, but I mean, it was fun.
I got extensive hoes with expensive clothes, and I sip fine wines and spit vintage flows. I don't know.
What would the reasonable doubt Jay, if he was here, say about this Blueprint 3 Jay?
I mean, forget life, right? Let's talk about a career. To go from there to this album and still be putting out material that people care about and still putting out #1 records and #1 album. I think he'll be proud of that approach because that Jay was still wise, right? That was always a wise Jay. If you listen to the music on there, Politics as Usual had a, like it's still musical. Like it's a very musical album when you look back.
Soulful.
It's soulful and it's musical. My first album. So it's only thing that's changed is the subject matter is a little broader because my experiences is a little broader. That Jay was more refined still, but still rough around the edges. I still had like 1 foot in the street still, so I didn't have no knowledge of the music business.
So you're putting Blueprint 3 out on the anniversary of the worst day in modern American history. Why are you putting it out on 9/11?
Because I don't think that we should do that. We should never forget. And we should always, you have to deal with tragedies, right? Or else they will continue to haunt you for the rest of your life. So I think it's strength when you deal with your problems, for one. And then what we're doing is celebrating our resiliency, that we're still here. We're stronger than ever. The first one, the Blueprint that came out in 2001, of course it wasn't planned. Right. That's what happened, right? And I don't know if this album's gonna sell 1 million or 1 copy. I was ready to push it to the side and forget it and move on because there were bigger things at hand.
Well, let's talk about that day. I mean, you're going into 9/11, 2001, gotta be excited because you know this is one of the best albums you've made. And then in the morning, all that happens. You're in LA, right?
I'm in LA shooting Girls, Girls, Girls.
I mean, it had to just completely change your perspective.
Quickly. But once again, I just put it to the back burner. I just thought, well, that's the end of that.
That's the end of the album?
The album, yeah. I thought, that's the end of the album. That's the end of that.
What did you think about your city, your country?
I was lost. Like, I've never seen anything like that. It's like, what happens tomorrow? We know that the world's changed forever now. But what are we going to be doing tomorrow? And then I woke up the next day, and then there was people pulling people out of buildings, and I was like, okay. And then it made me proud to be a New Yorker, the pride and the strength that was being showed.
I talked with you right after 9/11, and you said you gave to the fire department, but you were struggling with giving to the police, right? But now you're doing all this for the New York Police and Fire Widows and Children's Fund. And I mean, that's not emotionally complicated. Like everybody's
Right.
heart's got to go out to the women and children left behind.
Yeah, I said that because of the relationship that we had with police officers growing up. You know, it was always one of contention. You know, but again, this has no color, no separation. This is just one thing. I may have not been as mature right then at that specific moment, but it was my honest feelings.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think they were right at the time.
But we feel one way about the boys in blue, you know, but they're widows,
Right.
they're kids.
That goes without saying. I'm just saying even them,
Right.
you know, even the boys in blue, you know, there's no separation when that happens. It was no color or nothing.
But how did this come about, this concert? Did they come to you?
No, I wanted to do the concert on September 11th. I wanted to bring the thing full circle, and I spoke to Kevin Lowndes, who was over there. And I said, man, how do we put this thing together, and how do we get as many important people involved in it so it could be something? And that was pretty much my instructions to him. And then he came back and said, man, they have this foundation. I was like, oh, that's perfect. And then it just started morphing from there.
Yeah. On Twitter, you said, I'll never have a record deal again. But you got this Live Nation situation. So explain the difference between what you were saying, what you were at Def Jam, and what you are with Roc Nation.
Well, I was an artist on the label at Def Jam. You know, at Live Nation, I'm an executive with arms to sign production deals and book deals and do a movie if I like, or run a record company.
Beside contractually, why are you still making albums?
Gotta love to do it. I asked myself that, you know, because as I was making this album, it got to some points where it was really difficult to make because I wasn't inspired. And I don't mean to say this as a knock on anyone's music or what anyone's doing, but I wasn't as inspired by what I was hearing. You know, because my album is a collective.
Right.
It's not just a piece. It's sitting next to someone else's album. It's sitting next to everyone's album that's out there. Like, why would I put myself next to that? Not for money. Right, this is the music business. I may make less money in music than anything.
Right.
You know, so just that passion and love for it, and I really just wanted to make a piece of work. That's it.
Get your chain took in. I may do it myself, I'm so Brooklyn. I know we facing a recession, but the music y'all making gon' make it the Great Depression.
One of the things that I like the way you're coming out right now with Off That and DOA, you're kind of bossy. You're kind of like, you know, telling people, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do. You know, you kind of like, I'm on the throne and I'm telling you, you're messing up, this is how you do it.
I think anyone at the forefront of music or anything should push. I mean, if you care about it, right? If you don't care about it, just take the money, keep it, and don't say anything to anybody, and just watch everybody just, you know, do whatever. But I think as a person in the forefront, you have the responsibility to leave it better than how you got it. That's just me pretty much, you know, getting guys to think about the things they do. You know, guys having YouTube beef, and like, it's like, what is that? It's ridiculous. Like, what is that? Who does that? Like, if anything happens, you're going to jail. So when you start seeing stuff like that, you can do two things. You can say, you know, let them guys just make mistakes and just kill each other. Or you can say, yo, don't do that, man.
Talk to me about Reminder, because they're saying you responded to this one and that one, and I'm like, why is Jordan responding to the guy on the bench?
I almost took that album, that record off the album because of that specific reason. Because I was reading a book the other day, and it was the lines that was blaring to me. It said, the truth needs no explanation. And I was like, man, if I would have read that 2 days before, you would have never heard it. But, you know, sometimes, you know, you have to be human, and you have to, sometimes you want to scream. And that was almost me screaming, like, are you kidding me? Like, who are you guys talking to? Like, what have you done to even have an opinion on what I've been doing? Like, you're not even, you don't even have an opinion, not alone, you're not even close. Forget about close. You've done nothing to even have an opinion.
Begin. This is anti-auto-tune, death for the ringtone. This ain't for iTunes, this ain't for sing-along.
Death of Auto-Tune, one of the songs of the year. But why'd you want to set it on auto-tune? Was there a song that made you say, you know what? I gotta do something about this. I'm mad about this.
It was more so where the
Because
direction.
it's an angry record.
Yeah. It's more so the direction of where everything was going, and you had to really. On one hand, I understood why everybody was doing auto-tune, right?
Why were they doing it?
Because that's what the popular thing on radio was. And you're not selling any records in this day and age if you're not on radio. So everyone was trying to fit into this narrow place. So everyone was making the same exact music and it was all sounding the same. But they were making it because they were afraid. Before, Redman could come out with an album, not have a record on top 100, anything, sell 500,000 records and be in gold artist consistently.
And sound like however he want to sound,
Sound
not
like
copy the sound.
Exactly.
I crushed the whole brain frame, cause you couldn't maintain the funk, the heavy rap style for lunch.
These days with the internet and how, the music sales decline, and that's not happening.
Right.
So now everyone has to try to get the biggest audiences they can to put themselves in the best position to sell records. So on
Which
that,
nobody's really doing.
exactly. So on that side, I understand it a bit. But artistically and where we're gonna go musically, at the end of the day, we all gonna have one album, everything's gonna sound the same, then people are gonna turn away from hip hop. Because that's what happened with rock music. When the headbands invaded and everyone was sounding the same and looking crazy, with big hair and tight spandex, and then hip hop came in with this defiance and saying something different and saying, this is what we do.
Right.
And hip hop took over music. So if we continue to do that type of music, then we're gonna leave a big gap for another genre of music. And I just was in Brooklyn yesterday watching the indie bands and watching the Grizzly Bear perform, and they was just destroying things. And I was like, this is it. This is what's gonna happen, because this is an unannounced show, 12,000 people. This is happening. The indie rock scene right now is in a great place. I enjoy watching that right now more than hip hop. I know that's gonna be like one of those things like Kanye saying he don't play hip hop in his house, but it's just true. So Def Auto-Tune was more of a rally call. It was angry because it was like, okay, yo, enough of that. Let's go, let's go.
The auto-tune people said that they're selling more since you. So what's up with that?
Of course they're gonna say that. I don't know if that's true. We need
Right.
to check under
Right,
the
I don't
hood
know
and
if
check
that's
their
true
numbers. But it's a good thing to say. It's
Wait, what else are they gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh, our company's
Yeah,
dying
we're
because of
finished.
Jay-Z. Please let us go.
Yeah.
That sounds stupid to me. If you a gangster, this is how you prove it to me. Yeah, just get violent. This is Death of Auto-Tune, moment of silence.
You send out Death of Auto-Tune, but Kanye produced the joint right after doing a whole auto-tune album. And
Kanye was actually, it was actually his idea. Menard D really produced the record.
But
it
Kanye
was
worked with
Kanye's idea. He was in the studio tonight when he played the track, and we was having a conversation about hip hop in general and where it's gonna go. And he was like, man, just play the record. And Menard D put that track on, and then Kanye goes, yo, see, this is so hard, it's crazy. This should be against everything. No auto-tune, nothing. So
Even
I'm
though
sitting
he
there.
just did an auto-tune album.
Yeah, because he's an artist at the end of the day as well. So I don't know if he knew how far it would take it or the extent of, but it was he sparked the idea. And the next day after the song was done, he was like, man, that's a little too far. And we had a conversation about that, which led to him going in the booth and doing that ad-lib. That's too far. That was a real conversation. That's how it really happened. That's what art is supposed to be. It ain't supposed to be easy for Kanye or easy for me.
Kanye is somebody interesting in your world because you brought him in when he was nobody. And now he's this superstar, big ego and all this. How has your working studio relationship with him changed from when he was begging to now?
It's much better now. Before he was just there, and it was like, he was submitting these tracks and he wanted a record. He wanted a Jay-Z bravado club record on It Can't Be Life. But that's not what I heard. So I made It Can't Be Life, he was disappointed.
Wow.
He was a little bit disappointed, but he couldn't really say anything about it. He's like, I wanted a different kind. I was like, and that was the end of it, What? Now, he's giving his opinion, and because of who he is, it's a thing now.
Give and take. You'll listen to him, what he might say now.
Of course.
Jay, Rain Man is back with Little Miss Sunshine. Rihanna, where you at?
I know that you take your friendships really seriously and you're a good friend to the people who you're close to. Can you talk a little bit about how you helped your friend Rihanna through a difficult year?
Yeah, a bit. This is someone who came to me as 16 years old, you know, with no family up here. As we took her in and we started making music together, we all, you know, me, Tata, Jay Brown, you know, our own little circle, we built a really strong bond with her.
You launched your career.
You know, yeah, so we built a really strong bond with her outside of music as well. We become someone who we cared about and who we wanted to look after. So she's a young girl going through this in front of all the cameras in the public eye. We just wanted to be strong for her. And that's pretty much it. And I offer the same advice I would offer, you know, any type of friend. It's basically her decision of how she moves forward or what she does in her life. I gave her all the information available. Like, just, you have the information. It's on you from there.
Well, what was
You know,
the advice?
I'm not gonna give you that, but you know, just, you know, I gave her all the information and what it meant, and you know, from there she made great decisions.
You can call me Caesar, in a dark Caesar. Please follow the leader. So Eric B, we are microphone fiend. It's the return of the God, peace God. I might wear black for a year straight. I might bring back Versace shades. This ain't for Z100. Ye told me to kill y'all to keep it 100.
A bit from your album that I love that's really dealing with what's going on right now, your line and off that. When you're talking about that post-racialism, I got friends of all races and colors.
Yeah.
My life is a Benetton ad, you know, we're past
Right.
that. We're past black versus white.
Right.
And that's where really
Right.
the world is really going right now.
I think hip hop has done more for racial relations than any public speaker. And I'm not talking about Martin Luther King. You know, I'm just in itself, just not speaking to it just because it's hip hop and so many different people like it. And that's done so much because racism is taught in the home. And it's very difficult to teach racism in the home when there's a bunch of rap music playing, you know, and these are predominantly black guys. So hip hop has done so much for racial relations without directly speaking on it.
I talked to somebody right after Barack was elected, and they said, I'm not gonna say nigga anymore, because it's not appropriate for us to call ourselves nigga in a world where there's a black man as president. You kind of feel that?
No, I disagree with that. I think that what we did with the word nigga was turn it on its ear. We took the power out of the words because people give words power.
Yeah.
So if we eliminate the word nigga, I mean, it's a great gesture, but I don't believe that's the answer to the problem, right? If we eliminate the word nigga, then it'd be porch monkey or just change the word. People give words power.
But
Right.
should we be calling ourselves niggas with him there?
Before he got there, this word existed, and we took that word and turned it on its ear and made it a term of endearment.
Yeah.
You know, this is my nigga.
Yeah.
You know, Jigga, my nigga.
Yeah.
Right. We took the power away from that word. You know, even though when people still use it, it's because it's the intention. It's your intention with using any word. You know, it's your intent. You know, and I think the larger problem is fixing that. If you fix the racism at its core, that's the only thing you can fix. You can't fix words.
Well, we didn't take all the power out
Not
of it.
all
If
of it,
some
of
white
course.
person called you a nigger, you'd be furious.
Right, but if some white, it depends on this. Okay, so if some white person says, "Come here, boy," I would feel a way. But it's boy.
Yeah.
It's boy. So are we gonna not say boy anymore? But by the way, that's again, let's get going back to DOA. That's all I wanted to do was have the conversation. As long as we're having a dialogue, we may not come to the same conclusion, but the dialogue is important.
You talk about Barack a lot on your rhymes. And it makes me feel like you're really proud. And does it change what you think about America and what you think about is possible for black people in America?
Yeah, it felt like we were included in the process for the first time ever. And I don't know if that changes anything, but the hope of that changes everything. I don't know still if our neighborhoods get affected, right? Because what happens is politicians pay attention to numbers.
Yeah.
Right? If this community is affecting me being in office, I'm taking care of that. The roads are going to be fixed, the school books are going to be better, the computers are going to be great, because I have to take care of that community. I don't know if our numbers are there yet, but we've seen the possibility of our numbers right now. So sooner or later, it may have real change. In one of the interviews, I said the day that Barack got elected, the gangster became less relevant.
Yeah.
And that's true,
Yeah.
because we've only seen that option. When I grew up, there were no lawyers and doctors in my neighborhood. I saw the dope boys. So that's what I emulated. But right now, the hope of what is possible has changed everything.
Yeah.
You know, when a kid grows up and you tell him, man, you could be the president of the free world, it's
real.
a real thing. Now, that's a very difficult task, and it takes a lot, right? But it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be.
My man.